terrifying. And I think what really made me mad about the whole entire situation too was they would call an ambulance and they would take her in and they would not see any issues with her. They're like, well, her lab work's fine, and they will send her
Mm-hmm.
home. And
Yeah.
then it got to a point where they thought it was psychological, that they were going to put her in a mental
Yeah.
institute.
That's right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Chronic Tea podcast, hosted by me, Tirza, and my friend Kristin.
Hello.
Today, we're going to be talking about her story with her chronic illness and her GBS, and we're going to go further into detail with that and deep dive. So, I do have a few questions, so if you see me skimming, I had to write them down, but let's get started. That way, I don't forget anything because this one is super important. All right. So, the first question that I have for Kristen is, how did everything start?
Yeah, so this is gonna be long, so I apologize for that in advance. But but it actually all started with learning that I have POTS before I got the diagnosis, because I forget when I was officially diagnosed with it. I know it was sometime in 2023-ish, but I know that I had been feeling weird for a while at that point, and it had gotten bad enough that I was scared to even just like go out anywhere, or like especially if I hadn't eaten, or if I felt like it was really hot and I didn't have enough water in me, like hydration. So I would get really like lightheaded and unsteady on my feet,
I
and my
relate.
heart would feel like it's working harder, you know?
Hmm.
So I was always scared I'd pass out, and that's kind of when it all started. And I was feeling that for a while before I could actually find a doctor that, actually diagnosed me. Because I saw a few doctors about it, about like the lightheadedness, feeling like I was gonna pass out, and they just like didn't understand what was going on. They're like, "You have anxiety. Um, like you're feeling anxious and you're gonna make yourself pass out." But it was a while until I actually found a doctor who like actually understood what was going on. As far as I remember, all my labs are fine. It was nothing that you could really detect that way.
Hmm.
So eventually when I found one, I was pretty sad to learn that there's no cure. It's kind of just,
Understandable.
yeah, it was just kind of like, eat enough food, drink enough, like, make sure there's enough salt in you, make sure that you have enough water, that type of stuff. So, I started doing that and just trying to moderate my salt intake, my water intake, even my food intake, just to make sure that I felt like okay. And even then, I was still pretty symptomatic, you know? And I was just trying to learn how to cope with my new normal. And I think I was doing pretty good. I had to make changes to, like my diet and my lifestyle, especially because I used to like to go out and run, you know? And to do that, I had to increase my salt intake, but it got so bad to the point where I couldn't even go out and do that anymore, exercise.
Hmm.
Even whenever I was moderating everything, like my salt, my food, my water. So I actually had to get like a wheelchair if I wanted to go out without feeling like my heart was gonna explode. And
Yeah.
yeah, like, and if I wanted to stand up for more than like 15 to 30 minutes, I had to have like a wheelchair. So I couldn't really go out for longer than that if I was gonna be standing. Um, so despite all the changes, like, having to go like out in a wheelchair and like having to take care of my body more and really watch it, I was still happy because I felt like I was taking control of the situation and overcoming it. Like I was trying to get used to the changes, and I was like, okay, well, at least I'm not passing out all the time. And at
Yeah.
least, like, I know it's a huge problem with people in the POTS community, so at least I'm not at that level and I'm able to kind of control it because I mean you really do have to listen to your body. And like a lot of people have passed out and it's happened to me where I've gotten really close and it's super scary. So
Yeah.
so I was just trying to like avoid at all costs. Like I just felt like I'd die if that happened or something. you know?
Yes, I relate to that so well.
Yeah, and so that was all like 2023. So I was just like, I have to say that year I was like freaking out. Because like all the doctors are just there like, I guess you have this, but there's no cure. So yeah.
Yes, I know how that feels. Like you're trying to figure out like what is happening to my body and they're like, "Well, all
Yeah.
your labs are normal." And it's like it just doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. And it kind
Yeah,
of
she
feels
tells you.
like it drives you insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they would do like the physical and it's like, well, you seem healthy, like everything's moving. It's so weird. But then like so that was 2023, and then whenever 2024 rolled around, I started to feel overall worse. And it's kind of hard to describe it, because overall my body felt kind of just like off, even more off than I had felt before with just POTS, you know? And it was getting so bad. Like I thought this was my POTS getting worse because I would have moments of like extreme fatigue where my body would just, it would basically just kind of like shut down. I'd be too fatigued to even stand up. Like it got to the point where it's like, okay, if I don't sit down now, I'm just not gonna be conscious, or like I'm just gonna sit down right wherever I am, and I'm just gonna be
Yeah.
stuck here for I don't know how long. Like
Yeah.
and so if I was like outside, it's like, well, if I don't sit down now, and then I would have to be there for like hours. Like so it's crazy. Like you can't, yeah. So I mean that's why the wheelchair really helped, but it did get to the point where I was super reliant on it, and I would have to rest until those moments passed. Luckily, I never got stranded outside or anything. It was always like I was able to make it inside, but yeah, these episodes of extreme fatigue, they didn't really seem to be caused by anything. Like it's not like I was doing anything particularly, I guess I wasn't
Different.
exerting myself a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't exerting myself a lot. It would just kind of happen. I could just be outside walking and then and even just for a little bit to go to my car or something. And then it's like
Yeah.
it'll just hit me, and it's like super short distances, even in the house. Like walk around the house and it just hits me.
Mm-hmm.
So then in January and February of 2024, I actually ended up in the ER a couple times because these moments of extreme fatigue were, I'd also have like an erratic heart rate. So every time I saw the doctor, they kind of just kept telling me it's just anxiety or
Oh
POTS related.
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and POTS related now because I had got the POTS diagnosis previously. So they're like, no, yeah, it's just anxiety and POTS. And like at this point, I had been researching it, and I was like, there's a very few people who have POTS that talk about feeling that tired, for so long. So I was like, I don't know if this is POTS related, because
Yeah.
it's kind of like extreme. And like, I'm like, is it normal to be stuck for somewhere hours, like for hours, because you literally couldn't get up? Like, even people with POTS can crawl around. And it's like, for me, it's like, I don't even feel like I had the energy to do that, you know?
Yeah, I don't think that's normal either because there's a certain level with us that have POTS where it's like, okay, we're really, really
Yeah.
tired, but
Yeah.
we'll have like bad days and then we'll have good days where it's like, oh, okay, at least I have some energy this day. But if you're
Yeah.
like constantly tired like
Yeah.
all the time, then that's like,
Yeah.
hey, there's something going on. And that's also
Yeah.
another thing that medical doctors do is like once you have a diagnosis, they're like, "Oh, it's just that. That's it."
Yeah.
And
They
they
just
don't
stick to
want to
it.
bother looking into other things, which is crazy. Mhm.
Yeah. I thought that was crazy too. So then, like, a month after that, in March 2024, I was like hospitalized again, but this time it had been like one of the worst episodes of fatigue I had. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't really do anything. It was so hard for me to go anywhere. And this time I was actually hospitalized for a solid month. And I ended up with hypokalemia because I had already had little bits of hypokalemia in the past, but nothing to where it was too bad, and I was able to manage it with my diet. And the thing was is I was doing the same thing, eating the same foods and managing it the same way, but I still had hypokalemia, you know? So it was like getting worse or something. So the way I was managing it just wasn't holding up. And then in the hospital, Like I'm told I was delirious and like spasming, which I don't remember.
Wow.
But I've even seen videos of it where I am spasming, like legitimately, like crazily spasming, and I don't know. My memory just isn't there on that. So I don't remember my time in the hospital almost at all, and I'm not even sure why. It could be GBS related or something, but could be the nerve damage stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And I was also told that I was being super weird and inappropriate with everyone in the hospital.
Yes, this is true. She actually was. She doesn't remember. I'm not going to discuss
No.
that. But she was being
No.
inappropriate with like certain
Yeah.
things. And it's not her fault. Like,
Yeah.
her
Like
nerves
I
were
have
just
no memory.
damaged. Hmm.
I have no memory of that. And it wasn't me because I would never do that to people.
Hmm.
I'm
And
normally, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. It got to a point where I was really, really scared and worried for her because she would have like this habit where like she would forget where she was at. Like, think of it like
Yeah.
someone who has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's how she was, and I was so
Yeah.
scared because I think her husband said that at one point she thought she was in France, and she would ask me like
I don't remember
multiple
that.
questions. Yeah, yeah, well, it happened, but she did ask me like multiple questions. Hey, how are you? Like, even though you did ask me that before, and you would ask, oh, hey, how's so and so? And I would repeat the same thing.
Hmm.
But I was patient, of course, because I understood what was going on. However, I
Yeah.
just didn't know what was going on. So it really
Yeah.
scared me, and like, I was really scared I was gonna lose my best friend. It got to a point where I was like, what is wrong with my friend? Almost like when
Yeah.
Joyce on Stranger Things is like, what is wrong with my boy, with Will? That was me with my best friend. I was
Oh
like,
my
what is
gosh.
wrong with my friend? And like, I was freaking out. It got to a point where I called a family friend and she was like praying so hard for my friend too. I got on my
That was so
knees.
sweet. That was so
Yeah,
sweet.
I literally got on my knees. I was crying and I prayed the most hardest I've ever prayed in my life. I was like, please, like, I hope they could figure out what's wrong with her because it just got so bad?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
And
you're gonna make me get emotional here.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
I was
because
just
it's
so
just so sweet.
scared.
Like, I'm really appreciative to have, you as a friend in my life. Like, you've been like amazing support.
Thanks. It was really terrifying. And I think what really made me mad about the whole entire situation too was they would call an ambulance and they would take her in and they would not see any issues with her. They're like, well, her lab works fine, and they will send her
Hmm.
home. And
Yeah.
then it got to a point where they thought it was psychological that they were going to put her in a mental
Yeah,
institute.
that's right. That
Yeah, and
is
I
right.
told her husband, I was like, please do not let them put her in a mental institute because there's nothing wrong with her mentally. Like this, there's something else that's happening. Like I was furious because they were literally just gonna write her off and put her there, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, what if you guys did that, and then my best friend like loses her life because y'all didn't even bother to check and you just put her in like a mental hospital, which is gonna make her
Yeah.
condition worse.
Yeah, and
And
honestly, the
yeah,
way I saw myself acting, like, in the times when I don't remember in the hospital, it's like I would just be like, yeah, convulsing or like moving around. It's like I could hurt myself so easily. And then there's the fact that, I was starting to go numb and stuff, and I couldn't move around well. So that's just a horrible recipe for hurting yourself really badly.
yeah, it was a very scary time. And she was really sensitive. I remember you were really sensitive. Nobody could touch your legs because you would scream in pain. I
It
remember
was
that
really
clearly.
painful. Yeah, it was really.
Yeah, it was really scary, and it was just really a heartbreaking moment because I just couldn't figure out how hospitals could just send her back. Hey, your labs are good. There's nothing wrong, and then just want to send her to a mental hospital. I'm like,
Yeah.
are you okay? Like, why would you do that? And I had this conversation with Kristen and I told her, like, it kind of makes me wonder how many people are like, and they just write them
Yeah.
off as something psychological and they just put them in a
Yeah.
mental hospital.
Yeah,
Like,
especially with neurological
mhm.
diseases, which aren't well understood. Like they're
Yes.
not, because they're not all mental. Like some neurological diseases, well, I mean, they affect your nerves, and so of course they're gonna affect your brain, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah, like I know I was acting crazy, but I mean, I'm just glad that I was finally officially diagnosed in that hospital, and that's when I got my first round of IVIG, which I
Yeah.
really needed.
I'm really grateful though to our doctor who even said, "Hey, put her in this hospital," because he knew people. I believe he's the one that really did help you like through this, and he was able to get you stuff that you needed.
Yeah, because like once I was in the hospital, they were communicating like, with my primary care doctor, and then when it had finally gotten that bad, it's like that's whenever I finally got my official diagnosis, because I'm guessing like they just needed to rule out some other stuff, and like the people in the hospital were just like put her on like she has something wrong mentally, put her on like psychotics type
Mm.
stuff. But it was because of like my primary and the specialist neurologist I had gone to, that they were kind of like helping the doctors in the hospital realize it wasn't just mental. I'd been having these ongoing physical issues for a long time.
Hmm.
So I'm just glad that everything kind of worked out. And I also had like advocates. Because if I didn't have people around me who cared, and doctors who were trying to help, like other doctors, like I would
Yeah.
have been like, I don't even want to think where I would have been. Probably in a mental hospital, yeah. And probably never treated and probably paralyzed, you
Yeah,
know?
sadly. And
Yeah.
that's the part that kind of just like upsets me, you know? I mean, not kind of. Like, it literally does upset me because it's like, I don't think you would have been at this point where you can't walk, you know? And
Yeah.
like, Kristin right now is trying to get back into walking. She's been doing like physical therapy, trying to
Yeah.
move her legs and stuff. I mean, she's improving, like I've seen a huge improvement with her, especially with her memory. Like, I'm glad it's back. Kristin is now Kristin. She's
Yeah,
now
I'm
being her.
myself again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's herself again. And I'm so happy to see that because it was really terrifying. I can't even express to you guys like how bad it was.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the crazy thing is there's a lot I still don't remember, but from what I do remember, it's just like it was like so isolating, and especially being in the hospital, I always felt so isolated and alone, and that enough is like able to it's enough to make you go kind of like crazy. Because you're just alone, you're separated from those people that you love. And like the only thing I think that I got out of that hospital visit was the IVIG, and I finally got the diagnosis, but I was there for like a month.
Yeah, she
So it was
was.
very isolating, and people couldn't, and especially because it was during like harsher COVID times. So the restrictions were well, they were very harsh. Like
Mm.
nobody could really come visit me except for one person at a time, and they couldn't visit very long either, from what I remember. So I don't know. It was really tough.
Yeah, it was definitely the most scariest thing for sure. When I looked at my best friend, it was like looking at someone that was empty. There's just nothing in her eyes, essentially. Like, my best friend was gone. And I think that was super emotional, and I don't want to cry, but it was just the
Yeah.
most hardest thing ever. And I'm just glad that, to have her back, because the way I could describe it is it kind of felt like an empty shell. I don't know. Like, she just wasn't
No, I
there.
think that's accurate, because when I see videos of me during that time, like number one, I don't even have the memories right now. They don't exist in my brain, and I don't think I'll ever get them back, because I don't think that my brain was recording anything during that time. I don't think my nerves were healthy enough to actually remember anything, you know?
Mhm.
So I just don't think that I was conscious in any shape or form during that time. I'm kind of wonder what I was running off of mentally. Maybe nothing. I don't know.
All
But
I
it was really
remember,
crazy.
yeah, all I remember was when I spoke to you during that time. you were telling me that you would have like strange dreams, I guess, and you were just telling me that you would see multiples of you in your dreams. Like one was healthy, and then the other was you not being healthy, and I think that was like really hard too, because I can't even imagine
Yeah.
like
I
how.
remember having weird, trippy dreams, and I remember seeing versions of me in those dreams, and they were actually pretty creepy, I'm not gonna lie. Some
Yeah.
of the versions of me looked really creepy in those dreams. I just looked like I don't know, like a monster or something. Like
Mhm.
not all of the versions of me, just some of them, and that's what was really creepy.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Do you know exactly what was it that caused the nerve damage and the whole memory issues, the convulsing?
I think at that point it's just because the nerve damage has gotten so bad and that's why I was, convulsing. But from what I understand, the reason why I got it, at least what the doctor tells me and what most people say, is that stuff like COVID-19 has been linked. So viruses, any virus can do it, but for me personally, I know the only virus I got during that time was COVID. And that's been linked to higher incidence of developing Guillain-Barré syndrome than other viruses. And I looked
Mm-hmm.
this up in scholarly articles, so in medical journals and stuff like that, and that's what a lot of them are saying, or that's what a lot of them are finding. So the exact reason why COVID-19 triggers GBS isn't really known, and I don't think they really know how GBS is caused at all. They just know that a virus can trigger it. So they don't even know what the virus does in you that triggers it. Because if they knew that, they could probably stop it, or create something that'll help against it. But hopefully someone figures that out.
Yeah.
But they really don't know yet. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I'm just glad that it didn't get worse and it got better.
Yeah, and that's also why I'm always like telling my family members, my loved ones, like, hey, be careful with the virus, take it seriously. And sometimes
Yeah.
people don't take it seriously and they joke around me too, and it gets kind of frustrating because they're like, oh, I'm coughing or I'm sick, and that's not funny. Like, it really isn't.
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel like, mm,
oh, no, I
like,
was just gonna say it might be them trying to cope, but some people, they
yeah.
just will be kind of mean-spirited.
Yeah, I've had people do that to me on purpose because they're like, "Oh, you're so paranoid of the virus." But it's like we have every right to be because it messed me up. It messed up my entire body. I'm not the same anymore, and neither's my best friend. Like
Yeah.
if only they kind of knew or understood, how bad, it was. And I think that's also why I am like a really hardcore advocate for this and I'm very cautious, even if I look
Yeah.
paranoid, but it's like it's important. I mean, like look what it did to the both of us essentially.
Yeah, of
Hmm.
course.
And many other people too.
Yeah, and like I was saying, in the scholarly articles I was reading, the incidences of Guillain-Barré have actually really gone up because of COVID. So it's not anything new. It's not like a new thing, but it is rare, you know. And
Mm,
it's good that people are actually learning more about this, and hopefully doctors keeping up with the newest articles, so they can see what's going on and how the virus is causing other sicknesses to evolve and just come about.
mm. Yeah, and hopefully someday we'll be able to get a cure for this, because
Yeah, for
it's
sure. I really
hard
hope
on
so.
millions. Me too. There's so many people that are also getting POTS because of this virus too, on top of that. I've
Yeah,
never
for
heard of
sure.
POTS. Even though it's been
Mhm.
around, but I've personally never heard of it until all
Yeah.
of this had happened.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, like, I didn't learn about it until I was diagnosed with it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that the crazy thing is that another reason that caused my diagnosis to be delayed was because I had POTS. They thought maybe some of the symptoms were POTS related, all the fatigue. But yeah, I'm just glad that at this point it's been managed. Like I'm not getting any more nerve damage. The nerve damage is kind of done. I can actually move all of my body again when before I couldn't. And so yeah, I'm just grateful for that.
Me too. I really am. Can you share your diagnosis story with GBS? How were you first diagnosed, or like, did it start? Was it after the POTS, or was it like in the time with
Yeah.
your nerve
No, it was
issues?
after the POTS, and it was actually during my hospitalization is whenever
Okay.
I kind of got officially diagnosed with it. So when I was in the hospital for a month, that's kind of when they started me on the IVIG, because before they thought it was all POTS. But when I was finally in the hospital, since I was in there for such a long stay, the neurology department was finally able to get to me, and then they ran like a nerve conduction test on me. And like they were trying to look for any possible reasons, and POTS wasn't, it's like it was severe enough that they were like, okay, let's look for some other answers. And I think by that time I had already lost some of my I don't know how to say it, like my nerve,
Hmm.
like the reactions whenever you tap on someone's knee and you
Yeah, it
react
wasn't
to it. I
reacting.
had lost some of that. So it wasn't as bouncy as it should be, and I wasn't reacting as well as I should be, so that was kind of tipping them off to look at my nerves. And then whenever they finally did a nerve conduction test, that's whenever they officially diagnosed me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
it was just hard to get that diagnosis though, because I had to be in the hospital for a month.
Yeah. Is that how long it took you to get an actual proper diagnosis, essentially? It was like,
No, I mean, it took me a long time because, like I had said, I was having problems in 2023, but it was POTS related. And then by the time it was 2024, the symptoms started shifting. So I would say it took me at least a good few months to get a diagnosis, you know. And
yeah.
and at the time, I know that in early 2024, like January and February, I kept going to like looking for doctors because I just started to feel weirder and weirder, and I was like, this can't just be POTS.
Yeah, and that's what led to all the misdiagnosis and the delayed care and all of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think if they had caught it earlier, I would still be walking, sadly. This wouldn't
Yeah.
have happened because I wouldn't have been stuck in the hospital bedbound for like a whole month, and then I wouldn't have, and then I wasn't only stuck in bed for a month. After that, when I got home, my nerves were already so damaged. Even though they gave me some IVIG, it wasn't enough. They were already so damaged that I couldn't really move my legs, you know?
Hmm.
So it wasn't just deconditioning, it was like my nerves are up now. Excuse my language. My nerves are messed up. So yeah.
I see. Yeah, and your symptoms did. I honestly want to say your symptoms did progress rather quickly because I remember one time you came and you were like visiting me and we were like watching a movie and this was the time when you were on a wheelchair and you were fine and everything. I mean, of course, you weren't as walking as much, but you were able to like
Yeah.
to transport to places.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then
Yeah,
when
pretty
you
independently. Like I didn't need help transferring. I could just do it
mhm.
myself.
Yeah, and then I've noticed that when you moved closer, to here, that's when everything just like shifted. Like everything went so fast, and I was like, whoa, like you
Yeah.
were okay, and then all of a sudden it just went really
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, because I feel like at the time you're talking about, it felt like it was just POTS that I was dealing with. And then by the time that I moved closer at that point, it's like my symptoms started to get way more severe, but in a different way. And it just, like, I was getting those extreme fatigue, you know, like
Yeah.
episodes that I didn't really have with POTS ever before. And then that's whenever I finally got hospitalized. Like, that's what
Mm-hmm.
it all culminated into.
So when it came to treatments, it was just IVIG, right? There wasn't any
Yeah.
like anything else. Okay.
No, for me it was mainly IVIG, and they also did put me on like some psychotics because they thought I was depressed, which I mean, come on, who wouldn't be depressed being told you have a crazy nerve disease?
Yes.
Who would be happy like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. Don't worry. It's fine. I'll manage it." I feel like anyone would be kind of sad if they're told that.
Yeah.
But they actually put me, so they also put me on like antipsychotics, but those kind of made me more mentally unstable. So I think
Hmm.
that was a bad call on their part. But the only
Yes.
thing I really needed was the IVIG.
Hmm.
So
How does IVIG exactly like work?
So as far as I understand, it's like the IG, like your immunoglobulins. So from your like they basically take that from other people's bodies, and then their immune systems, and then they filter it, and they basically make it compatible with everybody's, like, so it doesn't matter what blood type you have, you can still use it. They can inject it into you.
Yeah.
And so they kind of clean it out and they just give you like pure immune system stuff. They pure
Mm,
IGs.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
why the whole donating blood is like super important.
Because if people didn't do that, um, like there would not be a cure for GBS. There would just be, I mean, as far as like what we have now, like there's no other medicines that could work other than that. Yeah, donating blood's very important. It
Yes,
does
so
save a lot
please
of
donate
lives.
blood.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, definitely. You were never in the ICU or in a ventilator or anything like that?
I actually was in ICU for a while, and that's whenever I was told that I was acting crazy.
Oh, I see.
So that's when I was actually in ICU then, and they had me like on a ventilator, and I mean, I don't know how bad my breathing was during that time because I don't remember, but from what I understand, my O2 levels are pretty bad, so they had to put me in the ICU because like I needed the
Mhm.
ventilator support, you know?
That's really
Um,
scary, yeah.
And I was just like a high risk situation because I was like flailing around everywhere, like, and not even my lower body, it was just my upper body.
Oh, I
I was just like
remember.
flailing. And I think at the time I couldn't really move my lower body. My nerves were already kind of gone at that point, at least in my legs, you know. But yeah, that's why I had to be in the ICU for a while before they moved me out. I think by the time I was on IVIG, it took them a while to do that. Like I didn't get hospitalized and then immediately during the month that I was there, they didn't put me on it immediately. It was actually more towards the end, or midway. I forget which one. But
Yeah.
at that point I was transferred to like the regular sections because at that point whenever I was on the IVIG, I wasn't really considered as much of a risk to myself anymore or to other
Mm.
people. I
Oh,
guess
I
I don't
see.
know. And so they took me out of the ICU and then they took me off of the ventilator support. So like took the giant tube out of my throat.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's very terrifying.
Yeah, it was actually pretty terrifying, yeah.
I
But I do
think,
remember that. I do remember them like taking it out and it just like choking sensation, you know?
mm,
But after the IVIG, I was able to breathe easier by myself, so I didn't need it anymore.
oh, thank gosh.
Yeah, so that's why they actually sent me home, I think like a couple weeks after that, because I was stable enough that I didn't need the life support stuff anymore.
Gosh, it just, I can't believe they would like send you away like when you were doing, going through all that too. I don't know, that's like really upsetting, but I'm just glad that, you were able to find like other people to help you. And I'm
Yeah,
very grateful to our doctor for even like, working on it as best as he could.
yeah, and to be fair, like I didn't need to be in the hospital anymore after I got that IVIG because like at that point there was nothing I needed like life support, like ventilator stuff. I didn't need that stuff anymore. I just needed to be resting and I needed to get more IVIG.
I
But you
see.
have to wait. Like you have to wait like 2 to 3 weeks. So like about a month-ish between each dose. And I
Hmm.
needed like I got like 6 or 7 doses.
Wow.
Like so that was a lot that I needed, but I got up to that amount and then by the time like so I was basically at home the whole time just needing IVIG because I couldn't really move my legs. So once I got back from the hospital, I was like, "Yay, I'm not like totally dying anymore, but I also can't do anything."
Yeah.
Like I'm also just kind of stuck here in bed or, in the wheelchair. Luckily, I was able to work with some of the doctors because there's actually an issue to where it was kind of hard to set an appointment with the doctors I needed to because of COVID. Like they were also overbooked, but eventually I finally got to someone and he was able to push for the IVIG to come faster because obviously it was like medically necessary.
Hmm.
So luckily I was able to get that. push through.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and then so for about 6 to 7 months after that hospital visit, I've literally been like mostly in bed and then just getting IVIG every month.
Yes, that's kind of how long it basically took for your recovery, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I would say I'm still not 100% recovered, but I'm not
Of
getting sicker
course.
anymore, you know?
That's good.
So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like my nerves have mostly recovered. I kind of just have some tingling in my feet and sometimes in my hands, and then that's really it. That's the only residuals that are left over.
Okay. And you, of course, received physical therapy, right?
Yeah, I got PT and OT, so occupational therapy too, but not as much occupational therapy, which I don't know if that's insulting because they're like, yeah, she's not gonna work anytime soon.
Wow.
Or or like but I got enough physical therapy though. Like I got a lot of it, but honestly, my doctor wanted me to have more. Like and he said that they should have been giving me more because a lot of the PT my insurance only covered it while I was getting the IVIG and stuff. And like basically while I was getting the IVIG, I was still like half paralyzed. So as much as it helped me to move and do some passive exercises, I still needed a lot of work after I was finished with the IVIG because after being finished with it is when I actually got full control of my legs and stuff like that, you know? So it kind of
I
sucks
see.
because I feel like I should have had a lot more
Give me a
physical
second.
therapy after.
Wow. Also, what is the difference between physical and occupational therapy, if you know? Because I've never heard of occupational.
Yeah, I had never heard of it either before I got it. But physical therapy is more like your whole body and you're trying to get like walking, whereas occupational therapy is for like fine movements. So like if you want to do stuff on the computer, if you want to brush your teeth, if you want to brush your hair. So it's for like little stuff that you can do while you're sitting down, you know? So if someone was wheelchair bound and their nerves were completely dead in their legs, they would be getting more like occupational therapy to help do all the little things just to help with just make life easier, make living
I see.
easier, you know? And so the physical therapy was, I got approved for a lot more physical therapy because I needed a lot more help, with my legs, moving my legs and stuff than I needed with my arms and doing small things like brushing my hair, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. What was the most emotionally challenging part of your GBS journey that you would say?
I think for me, it was just the loss of function and like it just kind of felt like I had been bedbound for so long that I was kind of scared I would never, you know, be okay again.
Oh, I see.
And my nerves were so like they just felt like fried or like I felt so weird when I moved. I was actually also in a lot of pain at the time too. I had to be on pain meds for a while. I forgot to mention that because I
Oh,
I
okay.
just I forgot about the pain meds. I didn't. It's not nice to think about.
Yeah, of
But
course
I
not.
had to be on pain meds for quite a while and like while I was on the IVIG just to make life tolerable and just to make the physical therapy tolerable. So I don't know, the I guess the hardest part was just dealing with that and not knowing how well I was going to recover. Because with GBS, it's a lot of like the doctors will tell you can't guarantee like we can't really guarantee anything. It's just you know, hopefully your body takes to the medication well, hopefully your nerves heal up. And they never really told me anything negative like it wouldn't happen, but they never really told me it would happen. So they just never guaranteed anything. And I
Yeah.
think that was the hardest part is just the ambiguity around the whole subject. And then if you look online too on forums, there's always people saying like, "Oh, I healed 100%. I'm back at work. I'm running around and doing sports." And then there's people who are like, "I'm in bed forever." You know?
Aw.
And it's really
Yeah.
sad. And then there's a whole bunch of people in the middle like, "Oh, I have some of my life back, but I'm not 100%."
Wow.
And I really don't know what variables make the difference, you know?
Hmm.
Nobody knows. It's not medically known.
Yeah, that's the most
So
hardest
yeah.
thing.
So yeah, that was the hardest. That was the most emotionally challenging part. Is I think
Hmm.
not knowing where I was gonna be, how long it would take really. You have people who tell you what they went through, but everybody's different. And I know for me, like what I've gone through is different than what I've read, you know? So
Yeah. How did GBS affect your mental health, and were you ever offered any like support for it?
so I was offered a lot of like meds, but no therapy. Like, see, I got like physical therapy, I got occupational therapy, but I got no like, no, mental therapy. Like it was all just like take the medications.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I got like depression meds, I got anxiety meds, I got something else. Like I'm not even sure what the last one was. I forgot. I think I had like a third med I was on. But it was just kind of like all of it was just like a band-aid, and it didn't really do
Yeah.
anything because that like the reason why I needed the meds was because I was in a lot of pain and I was stuck in bed and I had no idea if I would ever get better or not. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a pretty heavy situation, you know? And the meds didn't do anything, they just made it worse. So, and
100%.
also one another thing is that nerves take like the longest to heal. From any part in your body, like it takes about 6 to 12 months, like for nerves to, or even a few years. It depends how bad the damage is. So, I knew my nerve damage wasn't mild because obviously my legs had stopped working for a while. So I'm
I
like, that's
remember.
obviously not mild. This is gonna take a while. So, definitely my mental health was affected. And the meds just weren't helping. They were making things worse. And I think the only thing that really helped was like meditating and trying to be at peace with where I was at, you know?
Yeah. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's really strong of you. I don't know. You're like my biggest inspiration, like
Oh,
100%. You
thank
really
you.
are. I tell, David about it all the time that you're my biggest inspiration because, I mean, hey, you graduated from college
But
and
that's right, yeah.
yeah, so she graduated from college, which is
Yeah, I have
super
my master's
amazing.
now. Yay.
Yeah, it's really amazing because after everything she's gone through, she's still there, being strong, and she was able to graduate. So I'm really proud of her, and I really do look up to you because I'm
Thank you.
over here sick and I do want to go back to school myself. And I was just telling David, like, hey, if my best friend Kristen can do it, I know I can do it.
Yeah, and honestly, I was so scared because my problems were all in my nerves. So I was like,
Mm.
is my brain too damaged? I was like, maybe my brain doesn't have the mental capabilities anymore because I'm forgetting things and having like memory loss. And then I'm just like, am I even stringing sentences like together correctly? You know? Like, and then with my degree, it was a lot of reading scholarly journals and processing. I got to do a lot of like applying like information and tests and stuff like that and results
Yeah.
to real life examples. So I'm just like, can I even comprehend all of this?
Mm.
so, so yeah, it was scary, but I think it was totally worth it and it was a nice challenge for my brain.
Yeah, I think you're doing an amazing job with that, so it's really good. You're welcome. And so the other question is, did your relationships or daily life change significantly after your diagnosis? Like, how did that go?
So my general relationships, I don't feel like it changed a lot in terms of like our connections, but my husband, he did step up in a big way that I'm thankful for
He was so sweet.
because yeah, because it's not easy to be someone's partner when they're literally dealing with an illness that's taking away all of their physical and almost all mental capabilities. Like it's not easy. I mean, I know I got better, but the whole thing is that it took time, you know? So like in the meantime, he's just there dealing with me acting like partially crazy and then not being able to go anywhere, like move. So you know, like I'm really grateful for that. And then of course I'm really grateful for you being there and talking to me, because I can imagine that a lot of people would just be kind of like off put, and
Mm,
just be like, "Oh my gosh, this girl's like really sick." Like, what can I even talk to her about, or what can I even, do? It's kind of
mm-hmm.
off-putting to people.
Yeah,
Like, I know that we had another friend before, and she was always complaining about that. Like,
yeah, I
yeah, like whenever,
remember.
you would talk to her about stuff you're dealing with, because at the time I wasn't dealing with any issues yet. But whenever you talk to her, she would just be complaining about how that you're talking about stuff that brings her down. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? This is her life, you know? Like,
Yeah,
how can she just lie about her life?
mm-hmm.
People and friends are supposed to be there for you if they really care about you. So,
100%. And
so like,
yeah,
yeah, I think that's like a big thing that I'm thankful for.
yeah. I'm also really grateful to have you as like a good friend because you were there for me through everything, through my complaints with like with
I
all the
mean,
health problems.
it's totally understandable though, It is. And then my daily life, it's changed significantly, I think, since my diagnosis and all this stuff, because well, for one, I can't standard transfer independently yet. I'm working, for it. I can move at least. So the movement's there. It's just the muscles are not. So
Yeah.
I've been really struggling to get like the muscle tone back, but I've been doing a lot more exercises, and I'm getting there, I think. And then like you said too, I was able to, finish my degree. I was going to college remotely, so, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
was also, I think, really helpful for me.
Yeah. The next question I was gonna ask is, were you ever dismissed or not taken seriously by medical professionals? But I'm sure since we discussed that, it
Way too
seemed like
many.
that.
Way too much. Way too many times.
Yeah, I don't think that was fair at all.
Yeah. And I know you've dealt with the same as well, which you'll talk about later, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What advice would you give someone newly diagnosed with GBS?
I think it would be, don't dismiss your symptoms or think that you're crazy, especially if they come and go, because like if you get sick for like a little bit and then you're feeling like super extremely fatigued or something, and then it just goes away in the next couple hours, you're like, you kind of just move on with your life, and you're like, oh, I don't know what that was, but I'm just gonna keep doing stuff, like I feel fine. But then if it keeps
Yeah.
happening, and then it happens again, and it's just like you can't dismiss that stuff, especially if it happens more than once. You shouldn't even ignore it the first time, right? But with our medical system, it's very hard to get seen, so I can understand why some people would just like disregard things that happened once or twice, because it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard to get seen and taken seriously. But I think
Yeah.
that the biggest advice I would give someone, especially like, after they've already been diagnosed and they're dealing with pain and stuff like that, would be, no matter how bad it feels now, just trust the treatment and move as much as you can, even if your body is telling you not to move, because it hurts. Like, because you're going to lose your muscle mass, and if you become bedbound, it's going to take even longer to get back on your feet. So it's good to do as much as you can. For me, I think looking back on it, I would try moving around more despite the pain, just to help my muscles.
Hmm. 100%.
Besides, I was already in pain just laying there, so
Yeah,
might
like
as well,
might as well
might
just
as well,
try.
might as well be in pain moving and help something.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. How can friends, family, or caregivers better support someone with this condition?
I think it's just try to give the person everything they need within easy reach. Because, if you're partially paralyzed, like I was, you're still going to need like lots of water. You're going to need like help with like taking baths and stuff. So, like, I think it's really good to remember to always give them what they need within reach, instead of having to always call out for someone. Because, I don't know, for me, I just didn't like always calling out for people all the time for every little thing. And then who's available that much anyways, you know what I mean? Like, unless you have a
Yes.
full-on caretaker, no one's going to be available that much, right? So, I would also say, like, anyone who's giving support to someone with Guillain-Barré, they should also remind them to move around as much as they can and, like, motivate them, because I think people who have this condition need that reminder. Like, I know some people are great at just being their own motivation, but some people aren't, and
Hmm.
everybody needs a little help every now and then.
Hmm. Agreed.
So, yeah.
Are there any support groups or foundations or resources that have helped you or that you know of that could help someone?
I think in terms of resources, I mean, I got help just from talking on the phone to like to people about Medicaid and the people who are helping with, I forget, I don't think it's like a specific foundation or anything, but they help, like, the city has resources to help people apply for Medicaid and stuff like that. And I
Mm.
know that I had a ton of medical bills. So it's
No.
like I really needed the help, especially to get rehabilitation and stuff like that. I needed Medicaid. Because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't have gotten it. So I think in terms of resources, is like, don't be afraid to talk to your city and, see if they have any resources like Medicaid available. And though I didn't join any specific support groups early on in the illness, I know there's also online the GBS CIDP Foundation forums, and those are like a lifesaver for me because they kind of helped me mentally get through the worst parts of GBS because it made me feel like I wasn't alone. And I realized, like, oh, okay, there's actually a lot of other people who've dealt with this and they're still alive and they're still going, and some are walking, and like, even if they aren't walking and are like partially in wheelchairs, they're still able to get on with life.
Yeah.
Like, they still have a life. So I kind of held on to hope reading about all of that, reading like recovery stories and stuff like that.
That's good. So now on to reflecting all of this. How has GBS changed your outlook on life?
I would say that like, I'm still trying to get back on my feet, and sometimes I still suffer from memory lapses. Even today, when I woke up, it just felt like my head was super empty. Like, I was like, wait, what's going on again? Like, and I don't normally get those, like, moments when that happens. Those are actually pretty rare, like, now. I used to get them all the time whenever I was still on IVIG. But now
Mm-hmm.
I don't really get them anymore, especially after I've taken all my IVIG rounds, but it does still happen every once in a while. So, like, sometimes I'll just forget like what's happening, and those memory lapses are really scary. But I do have
Yeah.
to say that I at least know that I can move everything, so I'm optimistic. And my memory is mostly intact, even though I still have these memory lapses. I tend to get all my memories back. Like, even though my head feels empty for a while, I'll think about it for a little bit and it slowly starts coming back. So it's not so bad. And like, all in all, I'm just like really excited to get back to being on my feet again.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like realize how much I've taken that for granted. So
Yeah.
for my outlook on life, I'd say it's a lot brighter than it was whenever I felt like I was hopelessly sick. And I can
Mm.
honestly say I'm actually excited for life now, and I feel a lot stronger mentally and physically. So
That's
I would
good.
say that's what it did.
Is there anything you feel like you gained from going through this experience?
I mean, I guess I'm glad that I found out I wasn't crazy. Because I felt crazy
Felt
for a while because they literally told me I was crazy. I mean, they had me on anxiety and depression meds and were basically treating me like I was crazy for a while. But, I guess I'm just glad that the doctor stopped dismissing everything as anxiety. I kind of have peace of mind now. Like, and I feel like I'm overall stronger. So I guess I'm just glad that everything was legitimized. Like, they actually took me seriously, and like, I don't know if anything else has been super affected, but I'm just really happy to be alive.
yeah, I'm
So,
grateful
I
that you're
mean, that's
alive.
that's the biggest thing, I think.
For sure. If you could go back and speak to yourself at the beginning of your GBS journey, what would you say?
Well, I would feel extremely sorry for me. Like, oh, you poor thing, you have no idea. like, pat pat, you know? Like, I'm so sorry. So I guess like I would tell myself it's gonna get a lot worse.
Before it gets
Uh,
better.
yeah, and but hold on to hope and like let your loved ones support you, like let God support you. You're gonna be better than okay. Keep fighting, never stop moving. That's really important. And yeah, because I just feel like you never know how illnesses are going to affect you. And especially with GBS, it's so variable from person to person. Well, any illness, right, changes from person to person.
Yeah.
So I would just tell myself, don't give in to despair. Keep going.
Wow, that's amazing. You're really strong, like I said, incredibly strong, but
Thank you.
I am
I
grateful
don't feel
that you're
like
alive.
I was super strong, but yeah.
I think you are. I mean, you've gone through so much and you're still here, and I'm just really
Well, I'm
glad
not
that,
super crazy, so yeah. I'm here.
yeah, I'm just glad that you had a huge support system, and that's really good. Mm.
hmm
And I know your husband kept bringing you flowers. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember
yeah.
that.
Yes, of course I do.
It was so sweet. Like when the whole thing
Yeah.
happened, he kept surprising you with flowers. It was really
Yeah, I
sweet.
thought it was super cute. Yeah. And they were so like nice and pretty to have.
Mhm.
Especially because he knows that I missed going outside. Like I used to always be going on walks outside and running outside and then taking my dog outside, and because I couldn't do any of that, I mean as often as I used to or for as long as I used to, he would bring flowers and stuff. I thought that was so cute.
I know it was
Like
so
bringing
cute.
some outside inside.
We were also talking about how like what is that movie called where like this girl she starts her day and she always has like memory loss, and I know Adam Sandler comes out in that movie.
Oh, is it like
I
50
s-
First Dates or something?
that one. We
Yeah.
okay, there was a time where it was me, David, and your husband, we were talking about it, and we're like, that's what it is. It's 50 First Dates. He has to start all over every time.
Oh my gosh. But like it's not even a lie. It's not that I didn't remember him. Like I did, but
Yeah.
it's like, I was like so sad during that time and he was doing his best to make me happy. So that
Aw,
was
I'm
really
really
sweet.
glad. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you are here with us today.
Yeah,
And
especially mentally.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I wanted to do this to help spread awareness because I think it's really important because I honestly have never heard of GBS. And I know
Yeah,
there's
neither
a
had
lot of
I.
people, yeah, I know there's probably a lot of people that haven't. And I think it's really important to share it, especially within our community, which is the RGB. I know people were asking, well, I had one person asking, what is the RGB? And it's the Rio Grande Valley. It's a
Yeah.
city. And yeah, we just don't really have a lot of resources or, like, I guess, advocacy on certain conditions. And I think it's really important that we start sharing these
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. Like we're like a it's like like a collection of counties and cities. Like I don't know why we're actually called the RGV. Like, now
Me
that I think
either.
about it, I don't know why, but I just know it's like if you're in South Texas, you're probably in the RGV.
Yeah. All right. That's all we have for today since we're running out of time. But thank you all so much for watching. If you all happen to have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. We'll be sure to read them. Thank you for listening to my best friend's story as well. See you guys next time. I don't know if you have anything you want to say or you're good.
I guess like if anybody is thinks that they could even be dealing with this, it's like don't hesitate and go check it out. And find a doctor to take you seriously because it took a long time for doctors to take me seriously, what with anxiety and all that being a thing that exists in this world. But yeah,
Yeah.
it took them a while, but if you're feeling symptoms, like go get it checked out because you really never know.
Mhm. Yeah, you really don't.
And just so people know, like before I got, POTS, before I got GBS, it's like I wasn't a sickly person. I was actually
Mhm.
pretty healthy my whole life. So yeah, don't ever discount something like that happening from you if you really do feel like the symptoms are there.
100%. All right, guys. Well, have a good one. We will see you all next time in the next episode. I think on the next episode, we will be talking about my journey with chronic illness, endometriosis, how everything happened. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for
Hmm.
watching. Bye.
Bye.